Monday Night Football, Lions, Buccaneers. It's a big one, so let's dive right into it. So yes, today we're back with another preview / prediction video. I'm still working on getting my camera working. I don't know what's going on there. I think I'm on the right path, though, so we'll be back to normal positioning soon. But that being said, today we got a big game to discuss because this is a huge opportunity for the Lions to go into their bye week, back in the win column, 5-2, understanding they're going to get some players back and really set themselves up well in an NFC North that just continues to win because, for whatever reason, the NFC North is amazing over the last couple of seasons. That being said, though, this is a tough challenge for the Lions, not only because of the team that they're facing is very talented, but also because of course, some of the injuries that they're dealing with. Not having Brian Branch heading into this game due to suspension. Terrion Arnold, even though we know Terrion did return to practice, he's not going to play in this game. Ali McNeil, it seems like he's going to be back for this week's game. Taylor Decker, it seems like he's kind of a game time decision, but according to Dan Campbell early in the week, he's treading the right direction, so maybe we do get Taylor Decker back. But understanding that we're dealing with all of this right now, we're going to have some new guys on the field. Maybe we see some Kendall Fuller on the field, but ultimately we should be getting a lot of these players back here very shortly, and it's a perfect time for a bye week, but it's also a perfect time for an opportunity to put yourself in a really good position. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, they're getting healthier, I would say. I mean, right now for them at cornerback, they're healthier. You know, Zion McCollum back in there for them at cornerback, opposite of Jamel Dean, who recently returned from them. That could put Parrish. You can work him into some slot roles. They're also looking like they're going to have both Emeka Egbuka and Mike Evans for this game. Mike Evans returning, but now Egbuka, the reports are he also is trending towards playing in this game. At running back, they're a bit beat up, but they're very deep at running back, so I assume they're going to be fine there. So for the most part, they are getting healthier at this time, which makes the challenge even bigger for the Lions. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defense first, and kind of the approach that I'm looking for in this game. Now, Tampa Bay defensively, I think stylistically, they're still very similar to who they've been. We kind of know what to expect, but they've given us troubles over the past few years in terms of what we do offensively. And our game plan has typically been throw the ball on early down, back passing on early downs, right? We spread them out defensively. We get some quick throws. We really limit some of the creativity of what they can implement defensively. And then we've had our own little wrinkles, like the big JMO shot play where we go up tempo and we quickly get to the line and get the snap and we get them late to kind of rotate defensively because there's so much movement in the back end that I think one of the biggest ways to create explosives against his team isn't by overly complex looks offensively. It's more so about being a little bit more simplified in what you're doing offensively and just attacking all of the movement they're trying to create, especially if you can do that on early downs. Now, that will happen a lot more on second down and long, on third down, where they'll start to get really creative with what they can throw at you, which is why on first down, you kind of use that opportunity to simplify what they're doing defensively. And I kind of expect that to continue. I mean, if you look at this defense, they have lived on their ability to put teams behind the line of scrimmage with sacks on first down. At least over the past couple of weeks, they have constantly put teams in second and long situations. Now, there's an opportunity to get out of that because I don't think they have the best pass rushing front, but they're very strong still there. Vita Vea starts it all. Hassan Reddick, I think, has been a very good rusher for them. Yaya Diaby, someone you got to deal with. Logan Hall seems to thrive in those situations. So they still have a good pass rush across the board. So it's just not the game that you want to play. And then getting healthier in the secondary, having two safeties that are playing really well between Winfield and also Smith, want to stay on schedule against most teams you would. And I think for us coming into this game, because of the heavy mixture of cover 3 coverage, they'll still play a lot of that sky coverage, which against us, they'll do it to kind of push us back inside, take away the flat routes, right? They've done some cloud looks on that as well, which is where you essentially just have a safety going to a cornerback assignment and you're just rotating. That entire secondary is rotating. And then a little bit of a mix of like some Tampa 2 looks and they'll invert off of it. And I think that's a huge key is that they'll show cover 3, they'll invert into Tampa 2. So now that cornerback bails, now he becomes a safety. Now you have someone underneath drop into coverage and now you're getting into an easy Tampa 2 look, but you can show cover 3 because now Winfield can step in the box, play as a buzz defender, and then roll into that middle field linebacker role and cover the seams. So that's where their flexibility really comes into play on first down. Not overly complex in terms of, oh, they're doing all of these different coverages on first down, but it's just the way that they present it is where things get complex. 8-man drops into coverage, right? Here comes a DN. They'll drop everybody. Anthony Nelson gets out into coverage. Diaby into coverage. So that's where you get a lot of that. And then when they blitz off of it, which is where I think you feel that the most is their cover 3 blitzing on first down, you'll get an extra body, right? They'll overload one side. Maybe they'll simulate it off the backside, drop one of those DNs out that they trust. And obviously you want to attack that, but that's where the confusion gets caused up front. And for the Lions, I would say the biggest key is it's not even about big plays on first down. Ideally, you would get those, but it's just don't go backwards on first down. As long as second down is not 2nd and 15, I think you're actually in a pretty good spot in this game because that's where they've been dominant so far this season. All right, adding on top of that, though, let's go to those second down situations. When they have you backed up, I've seen a lot of quarters coverage, and for me, a key there would obviously be trying to find some matchups that you can isolate on the outside, and they're getting healthier, so we'll talk about that. But really, for me, that second level, I do want to attack these backers in coverage, the second level linebackers in zone coverage, not because they can't do it, but because I feel they play a lot more shallow. Some teams play very deep into coverage, they're taking away the big plays, you go underneath. This a team that to me will play much more shallow. They'll give you the seams. Those will open up. You can get a linebacker on a sail route and get him matched up with a tight end and get to the sideline. Like, there's opportunities at cover 3, right? They're going to do that, right? You run off the outside corner, you run a deep corner route underneath it, and you hit that big sail route shot on a linebacker one-on-one, and that's the matchup that you like. This is a team that I think has that, where you want to get past that second level, because for them, those linebackers thrive in those quarter situations when they have you backed up. That's why you don't want to get here, because they're really good they still have good athleticism. Servassier Dennis, not a big linebacker, but he's a good athlete. So they cover up a lot of the underneath stuff pretty well, and they'll essentially just bracket in over top with their safeties. And that's where they become kind of difficult to deal with, is when they get you backed up. So that's why you got to avoid those spots. But I would look for trying to press it to that second level. So if we add on to that, right, second and medium, still some of that cover for us. When it's short yard situations, you're probably going to get a lot more matched up man coverage, which teams typically do anyway. So that's rub routes. Who can you get open? And I think it's really important to identify route concepts that you can win on the outside, or whether that's some sort of levels where you can take out some of these underneath defenders, because for them, what they do is, as you're going to see, this really trusts their flexibility. Cover 0, but there's 2 rats underneath, right? They'll trust their front 7 guys to drop. So they can really muddy up the middle, where if you don't get the ball out on time or you don't have the protection to get to that second level, you got to find some answers outside likely as well. You can win one-on-one in those spots. And then when they get you backed up, that's where I see a lot of the softer Tampa 2 coverage, where again, even though it's that in general, you're trying to take away the vertical seam, I still think that gets open against this team. So I would look to attack that. I'd look for Laporta there. I'd look for speed in the slot. I'd look for ways to approach that. And again, it's not as much as we have to be overly complex at how we attack this. I think it could be more so just be kind of simplified on what you're doing, be efficient, and get the ball out in a hurry, and you can find opportunities to attack them. When they've given up big plays, they've given it up in Tampa too, because they've had a guy rotating and they invert it, and here goes the corner to safety, and he gives up a big completion. It's very difficult for a corner to deal with that. Gives up a big completion up the seam. He gave it up to Sanford. We've done that this year. Or when they go cover 3, we saw a big Jamel Dean completion, which was just a hard play fake. You got behind him, and it's 40 yards. So it didn't have to be overly complex. It just be efficient in what you're doing. And obviously that starts with that run game in this game. And the Lions, I think, can run the ball pretty well, but I really focus on a lot of the outside rushing against this team. Outside zone a little bit, but I look at potential sweeps in this game, toss leads in this game, right? Really going towards, for me, Greg Gaines, if you can make him run a little bit on the defensive line, going towards a Levante David, where you can potentially seal him at the second level, use your athleticism, right? Kind of just take him out of the play athletically, get away from Servassier Dennis, who is the big playmaker that's going to shut down your outside runs. Stretch runs can be effective. We've seen that so far this season. They've had a couple of good runs against them like that. I'd go at a guy like Hassan Reddick, though he can get upfield. You can work around that. I would look at a guy like Gibbs. This feels like a Gibbs game, and I think there's real explosives that can be created. They can create negatives because they do have very smart backers against the run, but you can also get real positives and big runs potentially while working some of those outside attacks, and I think that just fits Jahmyr Gibbs for this game. So I know it was asked earlier this week, where's the explosives? Well, I think this is a good game for Gibbs to actually find explosives when working the outside. I think some of the inside runs are much more hit and miss. Draw plays, edge rushers get upfield. Inside zones, you got the Vita Vea, who's a problem. Maybe you can get a Great Gaines a bit there, but those are a little bit less impactful. I think David becomes much more impactful when he live on the interior as well. And I think some of the counters can be a little bit tricky as well, because they do tend to read those pretty well, even with screens. Like, it's why screens aren't always dominant against this team, because their front seven's so athletic. They read it, they get out in space, that I don't know that some of that up front necessarily is going to get the results that you're looking for. So I think more outside rushing in this game is going to be in play. And if you get in the red zone, they're going to be dropping guys a lot. They've dropped 8 in the covers. They've played that quarters coverage. That's where you can try to throw screens, though in the past we've done that and it hasn't worked. So maybe we find our own little wrinkle underneath where we can get something simplified and just attack the fact that they're trying to drop everybody out in the coverage. Again, to add some of the notes to this, in coverage, I like going at Jamel Dean in terms of like double moves. If you can get speed on him, if you can get him matched up with Jameson Williams, I think that's an opportunity. I think he's great in zone coverage, which is where he's a big problem. In cover 2, he's a problem. He's lengthy. He drives on the football. I like complex routes. I like whip routes against him if you get some time, backside whip routes where you can just get separation on that second move. Had a really nice play on the ball in kind of a cover 2 where he's playing in between. He played it really well this season. I think that was against San Fran as well. So I like him on more complex routes where you can attack him. I like running away from Jacob Parrish. He's a nice press corner. He's very physical, but you can run away from him a bit, right? Deep overs, deep crossers, not overly complex, but if you get in play action, you get him lined up out wide, run that. Zion McCollum, another long corner. I think you could run away from him a bit. That might be the key for me, is how do you win against Zion McCollum? He probably is the matchup where you want to say that if there's a matchup that we can be dominant consistently, that might be the one in this game. McCollum back on the outside. That's kind of the guy that I'm personally focused on in this one. Again, I like attacking the seams against this team, getting behind that second level, isolating their linebackers when they go cover 3. That's been a real positive for teams, right, where they're trying to squeeze you back inside. You just isolate, take what's there, just get things after the catch, let Jahmyr Gibbs make a guy miss in space. I love that. Even Monty, but really Gibbs. It feels like it could be a really big Gibbs game potentially with all those DNs dropping into coverage. And obviously pass pro has to be on point. That's why it'd be good to get Decker back for communication purposes, because if not, they're going to come off that side a ton. Another wrinkle I'll be interested to see is how much they dabble with St. Brown in the backfield. I think it would be really useful in this game with how much they're dropping their front 7 players to trust St. Brown to find windows and be just a mismatch underneath and potentially help dictate some coverage of what you're actually getting against these guys. And Decker, I think, settles it down a lot. So hopefully we do have Decker in this game. But again, if you get Vildor on the field, obviously go at that. I also like if they're going to play, like I said, some of that softer coverage in like, okay, here's quarters and they're trying to bracket in and take away, the underneath stuff and linebackers give the safeties. I like isolating on the outside, going 1-on-1, finding someone that can just win that route. Maybe put St. Brown out there, go 3-by-1, put St. by himself, something along those lines to either force them to say, okay, we can't play this coverage because we want to have someone over top. That way he's not 1-on-1. Or if they do stay 1-on-1, say, we're just going to beat you there regardless of who you throw at him. So I kind of like that idea in this game to get them 3-by-1 looks when you need to have like 8 yards and you just get Saint to go work on an island. Maybe even Tesla for some of their size and physicality. He can match that, fire for fire potentially in this game as well. There's some of the focuses for me offensively. We'll flip it to the other side of the ball. We'll talk about this Bucs offense, which is dynamic. Starting with this run game, it's been very good this season. And there's been long stretches where they're not throwing the ball at all on second down and medium. They're just running the football over and over. And whenever they're positive on first down, they run the football, and they've been so effective running the football. This is more of a throwback gap scheme, though. A lot of counter pulls, a lot of zone counters, though that's not gap, but there's still a lot of counter runs to this offense. And that concerns me a bit because I think if there is an area where you can get more success against us is counter runs. They've had a lot of success, 10-yard, 1-yard, 3-yard, 9-yard, 6-yard, 4-yard, 5-yard. Like, counter pulls are very effective for this team. A lot of times it'll come behind that left side of the O-line. They lean on Bad Bredesen. They lean on Tristan Wirfs. They lean on Graham Barton. And their tight ends are their X factor in the run game. How dominant are you against their tight ends, right? Because in zone, you may not be able to carry that over. Here comes Barnes with him. Like, you may not have that. So whoever that is, how dominant are you there? Because what they do with their tight ends is they block the ends. So they'll have one tight end, kind of come over on his own counter, right? So if he's pulling, or if it's counter pull, he'll pull with a lineman. He'll pick up the end, and then he can pass another tight end up to the second level. And they pass those off. So you need your D ends to dominate those tight ends at the point of attack. That's such a key, I think, heading into this game is how do you handle their tight ends one-on-one, K-Dot, and they'll get multiple tight ends on the field. And this is a team that uses a lot of different personnel. With them getting receivers back, they'll go 10 personnel, right? They'll put 4 receivers on the field. And I assume they're going to do that in this game, especially if they're in any kind of passing situation, to just test the fact that we're limited in the secondary. That's exactly what I would do against Lions. I'd say, hey, I'm putting 4 receivers on the field. How are you going to match this up? Because I do think in general, Lions are going to come in with the approach of, hey, we want to play a lot of base personnel like we did last week. We're going to play some zone against this team. We don't want to give up the explosives. We can't give up the explosives in this game. And as long as we don't do that, we're going to give ourselves a chance. My guess is that's the approach in general for the Lions. And for Tampa Bay, my approach would be, hey, I'm going to spread you out. I'm going to put 4 receivers on the field, and I'm going to make you guys match up with this with either linebackers or some backup secondary players. And I'm going to figure out how you can do that. We'll talk about that here in a second because I think there's some wrinkle Lions could throw at. Another little wrinkle I want to make note of is run-pass option. I haven't really noticed it as much from Tampa Bay so far this season, but I know historically RPOs have been big against us. And again, especially if we're doing what we're doing last week, what they saw Kansas City do to us, RPOs have to be a big part of this offense. So backers are going to be stressed a ton in this game. And again, safety support on top of that. Also, I'm throwing this clip in the background. This is a cover 6 look. And just look at the throw here. Sterling Shepard's been a big part of this offense throughout the injuries. And now he's kind of like receiver 3/4 with Tez Johnson. A lot of counter runs, zone counters, counter pulls, a lot of that. DNs have to be a key in this game. I also need our DBs to light up these receivers. You can't let Mike Evans and Igbuka block you around. No, we need guys to light these things up. Safeties and run support. It stinks. This is a big Brian Branch game, but he's not here. So you need every defensive back to be involved in the run game. They're going to constantly force your safeties to step down, make a tackle. Cornerback's got to step in the box, make a tackle. They're going to constantly do that. So those guys need to be really good. If anything, just be dominant against the run. Right? Coverage, we're going to give up some things. They're too good at receiver, and we're beat up at corner. But in against the run, let's be dominant. If we're dominant there, we're going to give ourselves a chance. If we're not, we're going to get into trouble very fast. Matchup-wise, I do like jamming Igbuka at the line of scrimmage. I think if there's one thing that's thrown him off, it's been timing this year. You can throw off his timing a little bit with some jams at the line. If Mike Evans plays, he'll probably see a lot of Amik. so maybe you won't get that matchup as much there. Obviously, you just have to deal with a lot of the vertical threats with Mike Evans. That's where things kind of change for them. This is a team, though, that runs a lot of vertical concepts, a lot of corner routes, a lot of flood concepts. Like you get a lot of that post corners, corner routes, a lot of things working to the sideline. They'll probably get Evans involved in a lot of that, and they'll run some straight fades. And I assume that's where Mike Evans down the sideline is going to become a key in this game, which is probably what will force the Lions to playing a little bit softer coverage, which again puts the emphasis back on you have to find a way to stop the run if you're going to play softer coverage. And if you don't have to constantly a safety in the box, you're going to be playing a lot of cover 3, which means you're going to get a lot of one-on-ones, and their concepts, which are constantly sail concepts and getting outside the numbers, are going to be attacked. So now you either need your linebackers play with a lot of depth, you have to match in coverage, or you have to have your secondary really being great in communication and hopefully getting some legitimate pressure. So I'm going to talk about that here and add on to that here in a second. A lot of half rolls, kind of like we saw last week with Kansas City, half roll, let's throw it across the field, over routes, post routes, double post, slants a little bit, but that's kind of their offense, right? It's a lot of like, hey, one side will run double post, backside will run Ohio concept. There's a fade, there's the out route. It's a lot of stuff like that. Flat corner route. Okay, here's double post on the backside. It's a lot of that offensively. You're going to get them pushing the ball, but Baker can deliver those throws, so they're okay with it. Baker. Here's kind of the wrinkle I think is interesting. You could come in with an approach, at least at times in this game, similar to, I think, what you did last year against Minnesota. It's not to say it's going to have the same success, but I think it's an interesting idea. When you're beat up in the back end, you're beat up in secondary, obviously they know you're going to want to come out, play soft, not give up the big play if they're healthy at receiver, and they're going to say, okay, we can run the football out of this. We can put a lot of receivers on the field. The Lions could come out and just play very aggressive against these guys. It's going to give up some explosives, but I think at times in this game, it's worth having stretches of saying, we're coming after them, right? Cover 0. We're having a couple back-to-back plays. We're going cover 0 or cover 1 blitz, because it's actually been effective to run cover 1 blitz against this team. We've seen it on second down. It's been very effective. Some of the best outcomes have been teams going cover 1 blitz, because Baker this season, 3 touchdowns, no picks, but he's only completing 56% of his passes when he's blitzed. And if you want to limit some of the scrambling, it's an opportunity to get more guys in the pocket and just hurry him up. He just missed throws that have been wide open. He's had guys wide, he's just missed them because of that. Now, he'll stand in, he'll deliver some excellent passes downfield, and he's got the willingness to do it. It stinks because he'll pick up explosives that shouldn't happen because he's willing to rip it. He'll also make some dangerous decisions because it's like, oh, he probably shouldn't have done that. The problem I think the Lions are going to deal with is I don't know how many turnovers they're actually going to be able to force. I mean, typically in a game like this, like, hey, if we play soft, limit the explosives, if we can get 1 or 2 turnovers, we're good. But where are those turnovers coming from without Branch and Kirby? Those are the guys that typically leads you in terms of forcing those. So if they're not there, where do those come from? That could force the Lions' wrinkle to be, hey, we're going to play soft, but we're going to have stretches of we're coming after these guys. We're trying to create negatives, and that's how we're going to get it. We have to get off the field by incomplete passes, right? We have to take away this run game because now it's 2nd and 10, and a 5-yard run doesn't kill us anymore. Like, that's how the Lions may have to approach this, blitzing to stop the run. I think they're going to have stretches of we're going very aggressive like we did against Minnesota. Maybe not all game, but at times we're going to get after these dudes, and I think that's going to be on the table in this game. We'll also talk about another wrinkle that I think is interesting for this one. And I would say somewhat similar to last week, but not completely. Rachaad White. We think about Baker. We got to tackle him when he takes off. Rachaad White's done a great job at making something out of nothing this year. But to go to the down stings, again, first down, over routes, corner routes, they do a lot of the sit digs. They do a lot of that kind of underneath cover 2 and things like that. They're going to go underneath, sit. They'll run a dig behind it. They do a lot of good like level stuff specifically against that. But if you sit in cover 2, which I think is what the Lions will try to do, some cover 2, some cover 6, mix that on first down. They're going to go underneath. They'll run screens, but it forces them to play a softer game, and they've played a softer game against that. Now, if you sit in cover 3, they're going to have one-on-one, so I'm assuming they're going to take some of those shots. But also, if the running ball, it's going to be even more difficult to deal with some of the second-level throws. But also, they're going to get the ball out quickly, and this is where it's going to be difficult because they're just going to run out routes like Buka. They'll just run to the sideline, and Baker rips it. He throws great passes there. So you're probably going to be conceding some completions just running that coverage in general. But that being said, I would mix in some cover 2. I'd mix in some cover 6. I'd mix in some softer stuff. I would show some blitzing out of that because, again, he's not as impactful when he's blitzed. That right side of the O-line is a little bit shaky right now. But if you can just occasionally throw some blitzing into soft coverage, that at very least can possibly get you to, oh, there's a play action guy in his face. He throws an incomplete pass. Or now he can't scramble out of this spot. I think you have to have a couple of those mixed in. Obviously, a big key for the Lions will be being dominant up front. Ali McNeil coming back in this game would be great. This is the game where Ali McNeil, honestly, on his own, could change how this plays out. You're banged up in the secondary. Who's got to come through? Ali McNeil. If he's dominant on, let's say, their right guard, Klein in this game, who looked even worse when he came in, at right guard, right tackle, Charlie Heck, if he can go dominate on that side, and then Hutch can work opposite or towards the same side, he has an opportunity on his own to disrupt a lot of this game. on his own. Second down and long situations, second down and medium and short, they're typically going to run the ball, right? If it's second down and manageable, they're going to run the ball most of the time. So that's where it makes sense for me to say, hey, first down, play a little softer. Second down, we're blitzing to stop the run. That's where you maybe go cover zero, where it's like, hey, we're sending it, right? We're going to create a negative. We're going to get you in a third and medium. We're going to make you pick it up there. We can't give you the first downs in second and 5. So that's where we're going to play softer on first. Second down, we're going to come after you a little bit. I think that can make some sense. But on second and long, a lot of passing, a lot of vertical concepts, digs, routes. Cover one blitz has been to me the most effective, where you've just been able to match up with them one-on-one, speed up the process, force him to get the ball out of his hands. I think that's actually been the most effective. If you play some 3 buzz, ball's going to get out quick. So you're probably going to concede some stuff if you don't play that game. And that's where I think I would start to rotate that in a bit here. And then if you get them into third down situations, corner routes, again, are a huge part of this. Big things to the sideline, maybe deep over routes. And the biggest thing is the scrambling ability. And honestly, after watching a lot of Baker, I would consider on third down treating him like Lamar. I really would. Initially, I didn't think that way. If you're getting a lot of pressure with 4 or 5, you don't necessarily have to, especially if you're blitzing, you probably won't have to. But if you're only bringing 4, and let's say you're not overly dominant up front, I would consider playing it like a Lamar, especially if it's like third and 7 plus. If it's third and long, I would consider 3-man rush. We're settled on one underneath to kind of play a fade type of role. Like, I would consider that, because I would also look at it from the perspective of, okay, can Hutch and Aleem together give me some pressure with 3? I think it's on the table they could. And then I can sit someone else underneath. That way he just takes off to nowhere. I would consider it playing it that way. Even if front is winning, I would consider playing it that way on third and long. Not third and 4, but I would consider it on third and long situations. Third and 4, I can come after him. But third down and 7 plus, I consider playing a little more of a Lamar Jackson style defensively. Again, their inside rushing hasn't been as dominant so far this season. They'll do it. You'll get power runs in there. You'll get 2 pulls. It's just a lot of that, a lot of lead blocking. Got to take on lead blockers. I think Barnes is going to be in the key in this game, because he's going to see a lot of these tight ends. He's going to be a key to me in this one. I think we're going to play a lot of base package defensively. I think we're going to play soft on early downs. I think we're going to try to rotate some aggressive situations in there. And if you're going to create negatives, lines are saying, hey, we got to get 1 or 2. How do we do it? To me, it's got to come from different looks in the back end. It's got to come from, hey, we're playing a little bit softer and we're going to roll something, right? We're going to have Fuller go to safety, kind of like our own inverted look. We'll have Fuller go to safety. We'll have Barnes drop to the flat. He's going to try to undercut one of those quick out routes. It'll be something like that, where Baker kind of just fires it to a window that's not there by rotating a coverage. I think that's how you're going to have to get a negative. I don't think he'll just give you one unless it's a broken play where he forces something. That could happen by playing soft and getting them behind the chains. If you're going to get one on schedule, you're probably going to have to rotate a coverage here and there. You have smart zone corners back there right now if Fuller does play. So it's on the board that you can do that in this game. And I think that's how the Lions would probably have to do it, is one of those guys underneath would probably have to take away the football, because right now you don't really have that in the secondary. So you'd have to set one of those guys up underneath. They're going to have their hands full in this one. I expect a lot of scoring, similar to how last week was going to play out for us as well. I think we're going to have to score a lot. Being indoors does help. Hopefully you can create 1 or 2 negatives, be the difference, right? Win that battle. This truly feels like you win that battle. You give yourself the real shot to win this game. That's the game that you have to play. But I think the Lions are going to say, give up no explosives, and this is a Gibbs game. So for that being the case, I think the Lions ideally are going to have to score a lot, but they may have to keep it a little bit lower to actually win this one. 27-24, give me the Lions at this one at home to get to 5-2 heading into bye week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.